Hello, this is That Kid Denji, and this is my first ever YouTube video. My first ever actual YouTube video, not including the shorts. So, as you can tell by the video's title, this is a versus battle between two of the strongest characters in their own verse. The Control Devil, Makima from Chainsaw Man, and Gojo Satarou from Jujutsu Kaisen. If we were to ask a simple question on who overall just has better AP, the person who would win would be Gojo. The reason I say this is because in Jujutsu Kaisen, they just scale a lot higher. In Jujutsu Kaisen's chapter 118 and 119, 15-Finger Sukuna activated his malevolent shrine. Now, he had a radius of around 140 meters, but he can actually extend it to 200 meters, but didn't due to the fact that Fushiguro was in the area. Using the size of the domain, I was able to get things like the length and width of the actual building. For the height, I'm going to use 10 meters due to the fact that this is Shibuya, which had several skyscrapers in the area, or extremely tall buildings. Even if we were to compare that to real life Shibuya that has several buildings that are hundreds of meters in height. Because of that, 10 meters wouldn't really seem ridiculous or a highball. Now, obviously, since buildings are usually around 90% hollow, I'm going to assume that the volume of all the buildings are around 90% hollow as well. In chapter 120, we get to see the aftermath of what happened after he put out his malevolent shrine. And as we get to see, there is absolutely nothing in the actual area. We get to see that there's no debris, no dust, no nothing. A humongous portion of Shibuya just disappeared. Because of that, we can actually get to see on how much energy he must have released. He created over 107 kilotons of TNT, which is almost 30 times stronger than the bomb that was released on Hiroshima, putting him into the ranges of large town level. Now, this should be pretty consistent. In chapter 115 of Jujutsu Kaisen, while absolutely getting bullied by 15-Finger Sukuna, Jogo drops an entire meteor. Now, comparing Jogo's height to the actual meteor, we can get the diameter and volume of the meteor. On average, the density of a meteor is 3,300 kilograms. Now that we have the density and volume of the meteor, we can get the mass. Meaning that the meteor would have 3.2 million kilograms in mass. Now, since Jogo's meteor actually combusted into flames, so I'm going to assume that it's traveling at a speed at which a regular meteor would combust into flames, which would be 48 kilometers an hour. That means that Jogo created 70 kilotons of TNT, which is almost 20 times stronger than the bomb that was released on Hiroshima. Gojo would vastly scale above Jogo and would scale to 15-Finger Sukuna, meaning that Gojo would scale to large town level. Before we get into Makima's AP scaling, I want to get into something else about JJK, and that is Dagon's domain expansion. People like to say that Gojo would be island level due to the fact that Dagon created an island using his domain expansion. First off, when it comes down to his domain expansion, we don't really know on how big this actual island is. Throughout the entire fight, we only get to see them fight on the beach side in the water. Because of that, we don't really have any proof backing up the idea that it's actually the size of an island. Now, I know what you're gonna say. We get to see the island, we get to see the mountains, therefore it has to be island or mountain level. In chapter 109, it states that a domain's cubical volume appears completely different on the inside and outside, meaning that the inside and outside may appear different, but they're still the same size. So Gojo's AP would be large town level. Now, how does Makima hold up compared to this? Honestly, she doesn't hold up at all. First, we need to establish something, and that is that she scales to the Chainsaw Devil. In chapter 88, we get to see her send this man to space, so it should be pretty obvious that she would scale to him. In weaker forms of the Chainsaw Devil, we actually get to see him tanking an attack from the Bat Devil. The Bat Devil created a humongous shockwave, which blasted through several buildings at once. Now, we get to see a door on the bottom left. Using that, we can actually get the size of the overall blast. Because of that, we can get this to around city block to multi-city block. And for the next feat, the Chainsaw Devil basically runs his once with Kwang Shi and runs her through several buildings, which also comes out to be city block to multi-city block. As we get to see, the one who is clearly stronger is indeed Gojo. But that still doesn't answer the question. Who would win in a fight? The person who would win in a fight would be Makima. Now, you may be asking, you just went on a whole tangent on why Gojo would vastly scale above her. So how could Makima win? Two main things, speed and hacks. When it comes down to speed, we already got to see that on numerous different occasions that Makima just has way better speed. While fighting the Chainsaw Devil, we actually get to see Makima taking control of Kwang Shi. For her to take control of Kwang Shi, she would need to believe that she is superior to Kwang Shi, and that includes things like speed. Kwang Shi is a Chinese devil hunter, and she was so strong and so fast to the point where even characters like Kishibe was afraid of her. In chapter 60, we get to see Kwang Shi blitz and run through an entire mall. One of the guards even stated that she vanished. Now, if we were to use that, we can actually get the time frame. frame. MIT did a study trying to find out how fast the brain can process images. In this case, 0.013 seconds is the time frame at which the brain can process images. Using this for the time frame at which Kwang Shi traveled through an entire mall plus chopped off 90 people's heads off, we get a staggering speed at Mach 45. But if we want to go a step further and get this feat even higher, we can go an entirely different route. When Kwang Shi was done running through the mall, we got to see that it took forever for everybody to realize that they got chopped in half. The feat she performed is most commonly known as a tactile blitz. If you're wondering what a tactile blitz is basically speed blitzing the sense of touch that a person has. There are 4 Makima receptors specialized to receive tactile information. The one that I'm going to be talking about are Pacinian corpuscles. Pacinian corpuscles are large capsulated endings located in the subcutaneous tissue. These corpuscles basically act as filters and are very sensitive to disturbances at high frequencies. Those frequencies being 250 to 350 hertz. And we can actually use that for our time frame. Hertz are basically just a way to calculate the time interval of a known frequency. So all you have to do is just divide 1 by the frequency, meaning these are our 2 new time frames. Using that as the time frame, we can get Mach 210 to Mach 147. This should be pretty consistent, showing how Makima off-screened the gun devil, who basically moved 500 kilometers in 3 seconds. And if we were to take a look at Gojo, the best speed feat that he has currently is during chapter 14, where he basically avoids Jogo's amber insects, which put him at a staggering speed of Mach 55. Now, there is indeed something that I know a lot of people are going to want me to bring up, and that is that Gojo has inaccessible or irrelevant speed. Now, I'm going to explain on why I don't agree with this. This is due to the fact that it's simply a humongous contradiction. First off, the only character who would actually scale to irrelevant or inaccessible speed based off this would be Gojo himself. This is shown on how everybody else in the JJK verse have shown to have finite speed. A perfect example of this is shown on how he actually considers characters inside of the verse to be dangerous to him. A perfect example of this is Sukuna. In the second chapter of the JJK manga, we actually get to see that he's having a conversation with Itadori where he states that if Sukuna were to gain his full power, he would actually have trouble defeating him. Now, you may be saying 20 Finger Sukuna may not have finite speed due to the fact that we've never seen him in combat, which is definitely a fair and good point. But in chapter 0 of JJK, we actually get several statements and indications proving that Rika is actually stronger than Gojo. He even states that if Rika were to fully come out, that he would be risking his life to defeat her, and even states that he may die while doing it. Geto, Gojo's old best friend, Geto states that if he were to have the power of Rika, his percentage of winning would jump from 20% to 99%. So overall, Rika would scale to or scale above Gojo. Since Rika has finite speed, it wouldn't make sense for Gojo to have infinite, inaccessible, or irrelevant speed. We know that there was a 1-year time skip, so you could make an argument saying that Gojo now is stronger than Gojo then. But even so, this is based off his own perception of what he believes things are happening around him. You would have to prove that Gojo has a full understanding on how time works and is able to determine if time slows down, increases, or even stops. Which, might add, you can't prove because we don't even have a full understanding of how time works. I know for a fact that people are going to try and bring up the data books where it basically states that there's no time in that subspace. But as you can see, it was stated that it's based off a theory. All it's doing is referring to the idea that Gojo thinks that time has stopped. Not just that, but in chapter 89, we actually get to see that his ability works in a time frame. If he were to have infinite, inaccessible, or immeasurable speed, he wouldn't need a time frame for his ability to work. Now, when it comes down to the most common rebuttal to this is that in chapter 15, Gojo reacts to Jogo's sure hit effect. Now, it was stated in chapter 108 that these sure hit effects don't actually exist until they hit you. Now, this doesn't necessarily matter because it was stated by Gojo himself that he used Jujutsu to actually block the attack. And even using things like simple domain can actually cancel out these same can't miss attacks. During the fight with Dagon, a character uses a curse technique to be able to cancel out these can't miss attacks, proving using things like curse techniques can actually cancel out these can't miss attacks. Because of all this information, he would not be immeasurable, infinite, or irrelevant speed. But the question is, how somebody like Makima is much weaker in terms of AP and also may not have an ability that can bypass infinity actually beat Gojo? It's pretty simple. She has Duran Egg that doesn't travel. Chapter 66 of the Chainsaw Man manga, we get to see that Makima is able to crush the insides of the Darkness Devil, showing that she has Duran Egg that doesn't travel. And I know people are going to try and bring up the idea of range due to the fact that she obviously can't kill somebody from an infinite distance away. But it's shown in chapter 15 that these for sure hit attacks that don't have a range of an infinite distance can indeed work on Gojo, meaning Makima has a way of scrambling the insides of Gojo whenever she wants. So the winner is the Control Devil Makima.
Some call you don't accusation 正直いものの神体だ苦心高い命やどうしようとはパパラパラ高みなす人間言ってる世界 平等な人生才能も出ない上位に